Hey everyone, this is Nate Strout at the University of Redlands, and welcome to this quick start guide to creating new data layers with ArcGIS Pro. So today we'll be starting from scratch and creating some brand new data in ArcGIS Pro in the form of points, lines, and polygons. So first we'll need to create some new empty layers and define some attribute fields, and then we'll actually use some sketching tools to zoom in and sketch some of those features out and add them to our feature class. So for this demo, we'll be creating some new data for some lakes up in the San Bernardino National Forest, just north of Redlands here. We've got Silverwood, this is Lake Gregory, and Lake Arrowhead here. So we'll start by actually creating those layers. Now GIS data comes in lots of different formats, just like photos come in lots of different formats, you know, like a GIF, a TIFF, a JPEG, PNGs, lots of different formats to work with. With images, there's lots of different formats to work with in GIS. The most common in ArcGIS Pro is going to be the geodatabase feature class. So we'll go ahead and create those now. Feature classes live inside of a geodatabase, so we'll find our geodatabase conveniently enough over here in the catalog pane. It has the same name by default as our project. I named this project editing. And we just go over here to new, I right click to go to new. There's lots of different GIS data that can live inside of a geodatabase, but we're going to be creating a feature class today. So now we're in a wizard, and this wizard will step us through the process of actually making those feature classes, those layers. So the first one we'll do is just the lakes themselves. I'll go ahead and sketch out the lakes. So we'll give that a name. In this example, I'll call this San Bernardino Lakes, and you'll notice that I'm not adding spaces to that, and that's because you actually can't add spaces or special characters to the name. However, the alias, which is what will show up in the table of contents over here as the actual layer name, can have spaces and special characters, whatever you want over there, to make it a little bit more user-friendly. So I'll call it San Bernardino Lakes with spaces. We'll pick our type here, which is polygon. We don't need this M or Z value here, and we do want to add this to the map when we're done with these steps here. So this is page 1 of 6. We'll go on. On this step, we'll go ahead and add all the attribute fields. So this is the information we want to collect about lakes that we want to store with each lake. So when you click on that lake, it comes up and it shows you this kind of information. So you have to think about the information that we want to know about each lake. And usually that's related to the purpose of the project. For this example, we'll just pick up a few simple attributes. So let's just start with name. Okay, so just type name over here. You'll notice that we have lots of different data types to pick from. The data type is really important here. Depending on which type you pick, you can do different types of analysis with that data. So a name is obviously just going to be text. If you look down here at the bottom, these field properties, these are additional properties that you can set for this field that we made. So again, we have an alias, which is what will actually show up in the attribute table and in any pop-ups. So I'm going to actually type lake name there. We're not going to give this a default value. The length of 255 is pretty good, so this sets a maximum number of characters that can be stored in that field. So I think name is good here. Let's go ahead and add a description field too. So description is also going to be text, but maybe we want to make a longer length. This might be like about a paragraph, right? A few sentences. So we might want to make that a little bit longer. So go ahead and set that at 1,000. And then let's set this to let's make one more field here of depth, right? And with anything that's a measurement field, I like to put the units right there in the name, so there's no confusion between whether these are feet or meters or inches or centimeters or any other number of units. So I like to put it right there in the name. So unlike our other two attribute fields, depth will be a number. So we can't use text here. We have to pick one of our other types. Now we have a few different numeric types to pick from here. We've got integer fields, a short and a long, and we have a float and a double for any numeric values that would have a decimal. So short integers are just smaller numeric values, although they can be pretty large, about 32,768. And long integers can be longer. Same with float and double. A double is basically double the size of a float value. Because we're talking about depth here in feet, I'm just going to use an integer value. Anything more, a decimal might imply that we have more precision than we really do. So I'm just going to kind of round it to an integer. And I'm just going to use a short integer because even the deepest lake in the world is not going to be over 32,768 feet. So we can just use a short integer. I'm going to change the alias here so we don't have this underscore showing up in our pop-ups and in our attribute table. So I'm just going to call this depth, and I'll put feet in parentheses there, make it nice and clear. So I think that's good for our fields. Now the next page here in our wizard is to set the spatial reference, the coordinate system, and the projection for this layer. So that can be different than the actual map itself. A map can contain lots of different layers and lots of different coordinate systems, and that's fine. It reprojects everything to a common spatial reference. By default, this is set to this WGS 1984 web Mercator, which is okay, but let's go ahead and change that for now just so I can show you how to do that. Yeah, we have lots of different coordinate systems to choose from. I'm going to use the WGS 1984 coordinate system. It's kind of a basic general one to use. It's the one that GPS uses. You'll see that it's listed here in my favorites, but it won't be for you most likely. So let me show you how to find that. You can browse to it here. It's a geographic coordinate system. It's a world geographic coordinate system, but we can also just search for that. So I'm going to type in WGS 1984, hit enter, and it kind of filters our list down over here, and we can browse to world WGS 1984. Makes it a little bit easier to find. You can actually click this add to favorites, and then you can find it easier like it was up here for me. All right, so I'll click that. We can keep the same tolerance, we can keep the same resolution, we can keep the same configuration keyword, and we click finish and add that to our map. All right, so now we have this new empty feature class, new empty layer added to our map and added to our geodatabase here. So before we start adding any actual features to that and start drawing out our lakes, let's go ahead and add one more layer type. We'll go ahead and add that to our geodatabase again. So we're just going to go through the same process again quickly. And go to new feature class. And this one, I know that there is a fire lookout tower in this area. So we'll go ahead and add that as a point too. So I'm going to call this the fire lookout towers. And for our alias, I'll just put in the spaces. Change that to point. We have lots of different options there, but there's your point, line, polygon. Those are your most common ones. We don't need M or Z again, and I do want to add this. For this example, I'm just going to give this a name. 255 is fine. I'll give this an elevation in feet, just like I did the depth. Elevation in feet. For this, I'll go ahead and use a long just to change it up a little bit. I will write elevation feet here. I think that'll be good for the lookout towers. I'll hit next. We'll use it, kind of defaults to the last one that you used. So you should have the WGS 1984 there. I'll hit next, 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 and finish this up again. So now I've got our two different layers here. These are empty layers. If I go to the attribute table, so I right-clicked and went to the attribute table, you'll see that it has an attribute table, but it's empty. There's no features in there. We obviously have to create that data now. But you can see the attributes listed here that we made. If you hover over those, you can actually see what the real name is. You can see that it has name in parentheses. You can see the type is text at 255. Same with depth. You can see the name there, and then it's a short type. All right, so let's look at how to actually draw out some features, and add some features to these layers. We actually have some data to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and change this base map. Right now we're on the topographic base map. I'm going to change that to this imagery hybrid here. And we'll go ahead and start with Lake Gregory. It's a nice small lake, so I thought it was a good place to start. And it's also pretty angular. It's kind of an easier one to start with here. So all of the editing tools, all of the sketching tools or digitizing tools are here on the edit ribbon. So far we've just been on this map ribbon, but I'm going to switch over to this edit ribbon. And we have lots of different tools here for drawing new points, lines, and polygons. But first of all, we just need to create something. So let's go ahead and create. We use this create button here. And on the right, we got this new create features pane. And you'll see listed over here the two layers that we have to choose from. Notice that it keeps the same symbols as over here in the table of contents. So if you did change these symbols, it would also change them over here in the create features. Yeah, I'll go ahead and do that real quick. So let's just change the symbol for these fire lookout towers. I'll just look for a basic pin here. Let's use something going to be pretty easy to see. I'll use this push pin 2. The red might be hard to see, so let's just make that yellow. Okay, so we'll see that later. So I'm going to go back to that create tab here, and now we have these two types. Also, just wanted to point out that this is only showing the visible layers. So if I turned off a layer, it's also going to be turned off from this pane. That can sometimes trip people up expecting to see more layers here. All right, so let's create a lake. So first we'll click on the layer that we want to start sketching. So I like to think of this as if you were in a program like Paint or something like that, you'd be picking a color to draw with. In ArcGIS, you're picking a feature to start drawing with, right? So we're going to start drawing a lake. And we have these different drawing options here, drawing tools. We'll start with this one just called polygon. That's just the default. So with this tool, with every click, it adds a new vertex. Right? And because this lake is pretty angular, and I'm not going to do a great job here, this kind of makes sense. So this might work well for a building, parcels, something that is pretty discrete, pretty angular. Not necessarily a lake, but works for this example here, I think. So I'll just kind of finish this up and double click to close. Okay, so double click, and I now have this new feature, new polygon to work with. Now we know where it is, but we don't know anything about it yet. We don't have the attribute information yet. So we have a couple different ways to add that. One is you can open up the attribute table again, and this is already selected for us. You can tell it has this highlight to it. And we can just start typing here in the attribute table. So that's one way to do it. I'll go ahead and keep that. I'll close the attribute table and show you the other way. I generally like to use this attributes pane up here. So this is on the edit ribbon, and go up here to attributes with the lake selected, or the polygon selected. So I'll clear that just to show how that works. Right now there's no attributes here, but if I select it, now I've got the attributes of the selected feature. So the name is Lake Gregory still, you got that. Now I just I'm just going to grab a description. Here I have Wikipedia on the other screen. I'm just going to grab the first couple of paragraphs and copy that into the description here. The depth I looked up is about 80 feet. All right, I'm going to move this extra line. All right, so now we have a feature with a geometry, a geography, and attributes. I'll go ahead and save that feature. Now, this is a really important step. You don't have to do it after every single polygon or after every single feature, but you do need to remember to save your features. So we have two options here, discard or save them. I wanted to save it. And I want to highlight that this save button here is to save data edits. These are attribute edits, geometry edits like we just made, versus this save button that you usually click to save the actual project itself. The project is the maps, the symbols that you set up, any labeling that you set up, those kinds of things. But any changes to the data in those maps has a separate save button. So make sure you're clear on that. So now that we have this feature, and I'll zoom out a little bit, see it. We can look at it in the attribute table. Right? There's all this information. And when we click it, just like any other feature in ArcGIS, we'll get a pop-up that has that information. All right, so we have our first lake in here, our first feature, our first polygon. Now let's do something a little bit more complicated, a lot more complicated, and let's do Lake Arrowhead. So just like we started with Lake Gregory, we need to go over here to the Edit ribbon. We're going to move to Create, and we get our options here. Now, this one would take me a long time probably to do vertex by vertex and clicking along. So this one might make more sense to do as a freehand polygon. Freehand always sounds much more easy than it is. It's often you kind of mess up and then need to start again. But I'll kind of do that here for Lake Arrowhead because it does have a much more complicated geometry to it. And I'm not going to do a great job here, but I'll kind of do the best I can and whip around this lake here to create this geography. All right, almost done. So there you go, double click to close, and we have this beautiful new Lake Arrowhead. Again, now we have the geography piece of this, but we need the attribute information, right? We need to put that tabular information in there because it's still blank. We have a shape, but we don't know what that shape is. So I'm going to jump over here to the attributes. I'm going to click that again, and I'll just grab the description from Wikipedia again, paste that into the description here. I did find this interesting that Lake Arrowhead used to be known as Little Bear Lake, which is next to Big Bear Lake, if you know the area. And they changed the name to Lake Arrowhead. Oh, I didn't give it the name yet, so let's put Lake Arrowhead. And the depth was 185 feet. All right, so now we have, I'm going to wait to save this just to show that you don't have to do it for every single edit. So we've got our two lakes in here now. So I did want to show one more thing here. I'll use Lake Gregory as an example, is that if you need to make adjustments to your polygon, you're going to be back here on the Edit ribbon, and we have lots of different tools to modify that that polygon. Most of them are here in this Tools gallery here. You can also click this Modify button here and get all those tools up here. Let me show you kind of the most common one with polygons, with any kind of geometry, is just this Edit Vertices. So when you hit that Edit Vertices, it shows you each one of those vertices here. So if you need to get in here and move a vertex, you can do that. You can also add a new vertex if you want by right-clicking on a line segment and you get an add vertex, and then you can move that if you need to. You can also right click on a vertex and delete that vertex if you want to. You can move it to an exact coordinate if you need to. So lots of different tools to kind of experiment with there. And then let me show you kind of as an example here for Silverwood Lake. Let me start sketching this, and I'll use that freehand tool again. And let's just say, oops, oh no, which this happens all the time. Double click, finish that. Oops, I didn't mean to create that. I just need to start from scratch. With that feature selected, you can either you can hit this delete button here, or just hit the delete key and it's gone. Right, so really easy to delete a feature. I'll save a few minutes in this video and not draw out Silverwood Lake. But we do have that fire lookout tower that we can create. So we just want to show you how to create a point and do that same thing. I want to find the actual lookout tower, and I have the coordinates to do that. So over here on the map ribbon, we have this option to go to XY, and I happen to have those coordinates here. So the coordinates are 117.2347 west, which is why I have that negative, and the latitude is 34.2321. And this is the Strawberry Peak Lookout Tower. Let me do that again. Let me flash that and kind of zoom in. All right, so yeah, you can kind of see that this is going to be the lookout tower. You can see the shadow there for that. And flash that. Location was pretty darn close there. So let's go ahead and add that fire lookout tower. So now I'm just going to click that option here. Click on our map. It was added to our map with our little point here. It could probably be a little bit bigger, but that's the size we have right now. And just like we did with the polygons, I'm going to go over here to the attributes. The name is the Strawberry Peak Lookout Tower. And the elevation is 6,134 feet. And just to kind of show you what that looks like, there's the lookout tower there. And we have that added to our map. Now, I will go ahead and save those edits now. So that actually is going to include both the lake and the tower. We've edited both of those, so that's it. Both of those are going to get saved now. Let's zoom out and see what we have so far. We have our lakes and we have our point there. And now that we have some vector data to work with, some points, lines, and polygons to work with, we can start making some maps. We can start doing some further analysis. And so that'll be it for our video today. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.